Hey, it's Rod Yates here. Welcome to Mastering Events, an Audience Republic podcast. Each episode, I'll be talking to some of the world's most accomplished event professionals to discover how they got where they are today, the lessons they've learned throughout that journey, and their insights around event marketing and maximizing ticket sales. My guest today is Dustin Sugar-Moore, Director of Marketing at I.M.P, the independent concert promotion and production company that operates venues like the legendary 930 Club in Washington D.C, all the way up to the 20,000 capacity Merriweather Post Pavilion in Columbia, Maryland. We cover a lot of ground in this interview, from how Dustin manages a mailing list of around 1 million people to the marketing strategy behind launching I.M.P's latest club, the Atlantis in Washington D.C in May 2023. But we started back at the beginning of Dustin's music marketing career when he worked for a chain of record stores in Maryland. I think one of your earliest jobs is at Record and Tape Traders in Baltimore, where you were the director of advertising and marketing. What kind of place was Record and Tape Traders?
It was your classic used and new CD record store. There were 10 locations in Maryland, one in Delaware. I oversaw marketing for all 11 of them at the end of my time there. But I started working there when I was in high school. I was 16. It was my first job. I knew for years before that, all I wanted to do was work somehow with music. It was a block away from my high school. So it was the place that everybody went. We would all hang out there after school and buy CDs at the time. And so I knew I wanted to work there. I worked there for, I think I was there for about 7 or 8 years and became the marketing director at a young age, probably younger than I should have been. But
So obviously there was a love of music for you to want to work at a place like that. Where did that come from?
I can't pinpoint it, but I was always exposed to music from a young age. My mom was a fan of music. She went to concerts with her friends. There was always music playing in the house. My parents weren't together, but when I would spend time with my father, he actually was he was a craftsman, and he would make musical instruments by hand. He made Native American style wooden flutes, rain sticks, stuff like that.
Wow.
So there was always some connection to music with both of my parents, but neither of them worked in the industry. My mom's a teacher. My dad's sort of an all-around craftsman. And so I ended up here somehow.
When you think about the music particularly that your mother would play in the house, what kind of things?
It was, classic rock, Bruce Springsteen, Fleetwood Mac, the Beach Boys, which happens to be my first concert. I think most kids don't think their parents' music is cool, even if they recognize that their parents might have been cool at some point. So it took me a long time to realize that I also liked Bruce Springsteen and Fleetwood Mac and the Beach Boys.
Well, tell me about that Beach Boys show. How old were you and where was it?
Yeah. It didn't take me that long to realize I liked the Beach Boys. That was definitely my first favorite band.
Right.
It was my first show. It happened to be at Merriweather Post Pavilion, which is one of the venues I work for now. So that's sort of a very meta full circle moment. I was 7 years old. It was just me and my mom. And for some strange reason, she thought it would be a great idea to take her 7-year-old kid to a show at Merriweather. So,
and was it?
And it was. I remember it very well, actually. Yeah.
Right.
So
I
remember just being enthralled by it. And it wasn't the music necessarily, even though I knew it and I liked it, but just the whole scene, being there, being a part of it.
So when you think to now and working for Merriweather Post Pavilion, as you just mentioned then, what was that like when you first got that gig?
It had changed a lot over the years, and I had seen it change over the years. I don't think there was a summer that went by, at least from the time I, could go to shows on my own, that I wasn't at Merriweather multiple times. So I really saw it evolve. I remember when I.M.P, the company I work for now, took over booking and operating Merriweather, which was 19 years ago this summer. So, I was always kind of there, and it felt right. It felt like the place I was supposed to be when it happened. It felt like I had worked really hard for a long time to be able to work there. So
right. And do you think the fact that you were so that venue obviously meant a lot to you? Do you think that helped you or informed you with the way that you've approached marketing that venue?
That's an interesting question. I'm sure it did in some way. I think just being so close to it, physically, I mean, I've always lived very close to the venue, and also emotionally, being present at the venue,
Sure.
and feeling a connection for most of my life to that place, definitely. I knew the types of people that would go there. I know where they live. I know, the types of shows that would come there year after year. So I already kind of had an insider's perspective of it, I felt like. And I still feel that way after being here for as long as I have, for 7 years. I definitely still feel like I know that venue the best.
Sure. We've jumped forward a long way. There are some points in between that I'd like to talk about first, which I guess, so you started at Record and Tape Traders in Baltimore. Eventually you started working for Sonar and the Talking Head Club. Was that your first experience of actually working and marketing in a venue?
Yes, it was my first time working in a venue in any capacity. And, I didn't really have experience marketing events full time. I could market records, but I couldn't I didn't have, I just hadn't done that before. And the owner of the venue put a ton of faith in me and brought me on as a 24 or 5-year-old marketing director and said, have at it, have fun with this, don't take it all too seriously. And we're all going to make it up as we go. We're going to kind of figure this out. Like, he was kind of new at owning a venue. He didn't necessarily know what he was doing. We were a very small, scrappy team that figured it out and had a ton of fun doing it and had some pretty high profile shows while we did it. So
right. Well, so what, I mean, presumably it sounds like a bit of a steep learning curve. What were some of the really key basics you learned about marketing venues from that job?
Well, I knew the basics of music marketing at that point, but I didn't know how to market live events necessarily. So I really did kind of feel it out. This was right when the Facebook the self-serve ad platform popped up for the very first time. And I kind of taught myself how to use it. But, it's tough to remember back that far and
Sure.
Pinpoint what it is that I really took away from that, aside from this job should be fun. And that was really that was the main thing.
There are presumably some mistakes that you made early on that became learning experiences. Can you think of any kind of mistakes that you made that you did really learn from?
The one thing that really jumps out at me is, at the time, I was new to this part of the industry and didn't know the big players. I didn't know, certain major agents' names. I didn't know who I needed to handle with care and who I could be a little more free with. And there was one phone call that I will never forget as long as I live, and I'm not going to say any names, where I was on the phone with an agent and was telling him how we like to market our shows, and he was telling us how we were going to market our shows, and I gently but sternly said, no, this is how we're going to do it, and he ripped me a new one.
Really?
I have never been, as an adult, I had never been yelled at by another adult man like that in my life.
Wow.
It hasn't happened since, but I'll never forget it, and I made it a point to definitely learn, who I needed to tiptoe around, I guess.
Right. Okay. A good learning experience.
Oh, yes. That I carry with me to this day.
So how did you come to go from Sonar and the Talking Head Club to working at I.M.P?
Well, I had a bit of a stint in radio in between there. I worked at iHeartMedia for 7 years. And all through that time, really from when I worked at Sonar, I kept my eyes open for jobs at I.M.P. I knew Merriweather very well, obviously. I knew the 930 Club very well. Everyone knows 930 Club pretty well. And so I really felt like that was the right place. This was the right place for me. So when I worked at Sonar, I.M.P. had a deal with Sonar where they would book a few shows every month in the room. Mm-hmm. So I got to know a lot of the folks here at I.M.P. And every time I caught wind of somebody leaving or switching positions, I would always reach out to our COO and just kind of throw my hat in the ring, reminder that I existed, and say, hey, if you want to talk, I'd love to. I'm interested. And eventually, it worked for me. It worked in my favor. I was persistent, and I just kept at it. And one day, actually, it was the former marketing director who I was friendly with reached out to me and told me she was switching departments. She was moving over to booking and asked if I was interested in exploring the job. Literally the next day, I came down to D.C., had a conversation with the marketing director, the COO, and they pretty much offered me the job right there on the spot. And eventually in 2017, I finally actually started.
Right. Okay. Well, one of the really interesting projects that I think you've had recently, you know, I followed the launch on Instagram, was the relaunching the Atlantis, which I understand was on the same location as the original 930 Club in DC. Can you explain a bit about the heritage?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
well, can you explain a bit about the heritage of that site?
The original 930 Club was located a bit further downtown than the current location. Okay. Down on F Street in downtown DC. It opened in 1980. And then in 1996, it moved uptown to the location where it is now. The old location, before it was 930 Club, was briefly opened as a bar called the Atlantis for, I believe, only for 1 year before it was 930 Club.
Right.
When we decided that we needed to build a smaller venue, a place where we could sort of bring artists up through the ranks, there was a lot of thought put into how this place can be special and different from other small venues. And Seth, our owner, decided to, make it an homage to the original 930 Club. So we named it the Atlantis after the space that was the original 930 Club. And it's the current Atlantis is located directly behind the current 930 Club. It is a small replica, or a replica of the original 930 Club, right. In the sense that when you go in, it really has the same floor print, the same footprint as the original 930 Club. And there's lots of old concert posters, and the walls are weathered. We really put a lot of thought into how to make this feel like the old place without being tacky.
Right.
Because it's a fine line, but I think we pulled it off.
How much does the heritage of that place, like how much did that play into your marketing of the relaunch, for example?
Oh, a lot. I mean, even everything all the way down to the art that we used to launch the inaugural shows was clearly influenced by our original graphic designer, who would do all of the art for the original 930 Club. Right. We have a fantastic designer on staff named Hannah, and she has always been a huge fan of our marketing, and we've always done our graphic design in-house. And so Mark Holmes was our original graphic designer. She's been a huge fan of his. And so it was very easy for her to take that influence and create something new and fresh.
Gotcha. So when you think about the relaunch, I mean, like what were your key directives in terms of what you wanted to achieve with the marketing of the relaunch, and what were the most effective channels for you to achieve those results?
So, yeah, we wanted to create a big splash. I mean, that was really the goal with the marketing. So we booked, it's I.M.P's 44th year as a promoter. So we booked 44 underplays in this very small 450 cap room. Foo Fighters, Maggie Rogers, Joan Jett, Jeff Tweedy, Yola Tango, like acts that, would sell out rooms 10 times the size.
Sure.
So to launch it, we did a lottery system for those initial tickets. The ticket cost was $44. We announced all 44 shows at once, and we set up a lottery system that we ended up getting about 520,000 ticket requests.
Wow.
And we only had just over 19,000 tickets to go around. So a huge splash was in fact made. And we had a big media push behind it too. We had to get the word out, and people wanted to hear about it. So it worked out well.
So when you have 520,000 ticket requests, is that an opportunity for you to collect the data or the emails of all those people? And is that what you did?
Absolutely. We have email addresses for all of them, for everyone that requested tickets. We know which shows they requested tickets for. When those artists come back around, likely playing our larger rooms, we can certainly use that data to help market those shows. Some of that's already been occurring because we've had some of these acts play our larger rooms too.
That's a great way to collect all that data in one big swoop.
Yeah. And, honestly, that was not even a thought. And it should have been, but it wasn't. The thought behind it was, how can we get these, these are underplays. We're going to have Foo Fighters playing a 450 cap room. Like, when does that happen?
Yeah.
How do we get these into the hands of fans and not scalpers or bots? So that was really what drove it. And the data was sort of a welcome bonus on top of it.
So what are the most effective ways to use that data? You mentioned you've been emailing, you know which tickets people requested, which shows people requested tickets for. Are you then segmenting all of that database and going, well, this person requested a Foo Fighters ticket, so every time we have a rock show coming through any of our venues, we're going to contact them? Did you try and segment that finally?
Oh yeah, more or less. That's what we've done with it. Yeah, we downloaded all of the data, uploaded it to our email marketing platform, and it's all segmented out and ready for us to use.
And how effective is email marketing for you in terms of ticket conversions?
For us, it's our biggest tool we have. We have been growing our email database for as long as email marketing has existed. We have almost 1 million subscribers on our email list, and we do clean it out pretty regularly just to make sure we're hitting people that actually want to be on the list. But that's where we see the majority of our conversions. We have been sending our email blast on Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m. consistently for probably 20 years at this point. So fans certainly know where to find new shows coming to our venues. All they have to do is wait for it to be delivered to them on Wednesday evening. We have pre-sale codes in there that are exclusive to our email database. Our pre-sales run on Thursdays like clockwork, and on sales are mostly Fridays still. So, people know at this point that's where to get it. Obviously, other tools come into play too, but email is certainly our biggest tool.
How important is that consistency? That fact that it's 6 p.m. every Wednesday, the pre-sale is Thursday. Like, how important is that?
I know that it's important because when it doesn't come right at 6 p.m., if there's a glitch or there's something on our end that holds it up even by an hour, we start getting people emailing us going, where's the pre-sale code for this show? Or I didn't get my email. What's going on? Is everything okay? And I know from when I was a fan before I worked here that was also, I was also trained to look for that email on Wednesday evenings. And if it didn't show up, I felt like something wasn't right. It felt like something was off because I knew it should be there. It's a very consistent part of our marketing.
And is it every single person on your database gets that weekly email?
Yes, the weekly email, every person in our database gets it. We include all 5 of our venues. It has every show that we've announced that week or every show that's going on sale that week. And we don't segment it out. We do plenty of other email marketing by segment or for specific shows, but that one in particular on Wednesdays, that's the only email we send on Wednesdays, the only marketing email we'll send on Wednesdays, and you can count on it.
I was going to ask about the other email marketing you do on top of that, whether like how many emails a week, for example, like if I'm on your database, how many emails would you expect that I might get?
As a subscriber, you wouldn't get more than 3, and that's going to be rare. 2 max, but that's something we put. That's our limit that we've placed on it. We don't want people to be getting more than they bargained for. More than I know that if I'm getting multiple emails from any particular business each week, it's going to turn me off. So we do tons of. We call them dedicated email blasts, but emails for specific shows that we're promoting, and we target those meticulously. But there's obviously crossover from show to show, and so we've put that 3 email limit on ourselves, and we do it within our email platform. So if somebody happens to be on the list for 5 different emails, they're only going to get the weekly and maybe 2 others that we send out each week.
Okay. And then in terms of the content for those supplementary emails, what kind of messaging do you find works? Any particular calls to action?
So there's always a call to action, but it's not always the most overt, I guess. And this goes for a weekly email too. We have writers on staff that write about the shows. We treat our emails as sort of an educational tool for the fan. We know, especially now with the Atlantis marketing, up and coming bands, that most people don't know about, that's an opportunity for us to educate potential fans. So we spend a lot of time writing content for our weekly email as well as each of our dedicated emails. There's always going to be a paragraph in there that'll tell you a little bit about the artist if you've never heard of them. And if you are a fan, it'll tell you a little bit about why you should go to that show too.
So it's that idea of actually the emails are useful.
Yeah, hopefully. I think that's why people have stayed subscribed. DC is a really transient city, so a lot of people will sign up for our email blast knowing that they're making a trip here, but they're only here for a week, but they want to see what's coming, or see if anything pops up for that week that they're in town. And they stay subscribed because the content is good. It's not just a list of shows. It's, here's some new acts that we think are really cool, and you're going to think they're cool too.
What about SMS? Is that something that you utilize?
We've actually only just started down that road. And we can talk a bit more about this, but we have a loyalty program called Friends with Benefits. So we've rolled out SMS messaging to that group of people. We have about just shy of 50,000 members for our loyalty program. And about 15,000 of them have opted in for SMS, which is a pretty good ratio if you ask me. And these are hungry fans. They want the info. They want to know. They want to be the first to hear about shows that are coming. So why not start with our most loyal fans if we're going to test out a new platform? So far, so good. It's been working well. We've been learning, what works, what doesn't. I did a lot of SMS marketing in my previous job at iHeart, so I had some idea of best practices there. But yeah, we're learning how it works in the live music space. And I think a lot of others are too.
And what are the best practices for the live music space that you've?
I'll get back to you on that. No, really, it's if you're gonna tell people that they're gonna be the first to know, make sure they're actually the first to know. So we do message those folks, even if it's just a few minutes before our email. Sometimes we'll message those folks and make sure they get that info first. We've done pre-sales through our Friends with Benefits SMS messaging that have gone very well. So, offer something special, make it exclusive, and that tends to work.
Okay, so that's,
and as a consumer, I relate. That's what I want to see too. I don't want to just see a generic text message about just a random show. I want to have something special delivered to me if I'm going to sign up for that.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you will have perhaps a pre-sale code in there as well. So you'll actually have that call to action there in the SMS as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done it a few times and it's been really great.
Okay. And then in terms of some of the digital channels that you use, and I'm wondering whether they change across the different venues, which will obviously have different sizes of bands, but do you find that any one channel is particularly consistent, whether it's Meta or we sort of start getting into X now, like anything really working for you?
They're all consistently inconsistent. Things are always changing on all of those platforms, as we all know. And we're always trying to keep up with the latest algorithm changes and all of that. But certainly when it comes to marketing the shows, we do see an older audience responds better on Facebook or Meta. The younger audience is obviously on TikTok, Instagram, if they're a little bit older, Twitter or X. That's who knows these days. I'm not going to touch that one.
Well, let's think about TikTok for a second. What kind of content would you generate for TikTok? I presume it might be different to Facebook, for example.
Oh, very, very, very different. I mean, TikTok has its own trends happening. So when we're talking about organic content, we definitely jump on those trends. That's what gets eyes. And it's fun. It gives our interns a way to feel like they're involved. They're the ones that know TikTok the best anyway. So, so it gets them involved. And then we'll also do paid advertising on TikTok, which we've just sort of ventured into, using Spark codes. Generally boosting an artist's video that already exists. We're not usually making our own ad content for TikTok. But it's, for the artists that do have a large presence on the platform, it's a really great tool.
So when you think about some of your offline marketing as well, like what's your balance between online and offline? And again, I imagine it changes between venues.
Well, our offline stuff really is, I mean, it's been pretty consistent for a long time. When Seth first started I.M.P, he sort of had an ethos where he didn't want to pigeonhole fans. He didn't want to assume that just because somebody liked this band that they're also going to like this band. Obviously, we have to do that to a certain degree. We have so many shows at any given time that we've got to narrow it down. But we don't necessarily, we do that online mostly. We have a huge outdoor campaign that is constantly running, something like 50 metro stations, 25 bike shares and bus shelters, several malls. So we update that art on a monthly basis so that it is, so that we have our newest shows in there. But we include all 5 venues in that campaign. We don't narrow it down for anybody when we're doing our broad outdoor campaign. And we also still do print in the major publications, Washington Post, Baltimore Sun. We'll do print ads monthly, and we'll include all 5 venues there as well. Okay. So that, people can take a look and see what the options are and decide for themselves if they want to go. And if they want to go on our website and learn more about a band, generally speaking, we'll have bios on there and they can decide for themselves if it's for them.
Okay. I guess with that outdoor advertising, it's perhaps more difficult to attribute it to, that it resulted in this many sales. But so is it as much an awareness thing as it is a ticket sales conversion tool?
Our outdoor campaign is very much an awareness campaign. Yeah. Okay. Obviously, we know that we're selling tickets from that, but generally speaking, it's a branding campaign. It's to make sure everybody knows that all of these shows are coming, and there's always a variety. Even if they don't see something on that ad that month, hopefully they're coming away with the thought of, well, at some point something I'll like is here, and I'll keep checking.
Yeah, and that the out of home advertising is really interesting because I think in some ways it even carries a little bit more weight when you just don't see, you're not being bombarded on your Instagram or your Facebook. You're actually outside and you see these ads, so there's a real benefit to that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we make sure DC is a walkable city and people are always out and about, and so we make sure we bring the info to them where they are. It's pretty rare I'll see our ads in a metro station and there isn't somebody looking at it, which feels really good. And I take the metro a lot, so I see it a lot.
And do you do things like QR codes on any of those posters that people can scan and get information on shows?
Yeah, we generally have a QR code for our calendar, but then we'll also have QR codes if there's something else going on that we've included in that ad, Okay. I think right now we actually have we're hiring, so we've got a QR code for hiring. They work really well. They get a lot of scans. If you're running by real quick and you see that QR code, that's an easy way to just see what's in that ad. Just scan that code and you'll get all the info.
Off you go. So when you think about your venues, I mean, they range in the Atlantis, as you mentioned, about 450 cap, up to Merriweather Post Pavilion, which I think is probably just shy of 20,000 people. Given the size disparity between the venues, does the data from each venue, can it inform your approach to marketing your other venues?
Yeah, for sure. When artists are coming up through our venues, hopefully starting at the Atlantis and then maybe the following year playing 930 Club, that's really the best use of that data for us, is holding on to it for the next time that artist comes through. We're looking forward to the day where we've had an artist play all 5 of our venues. And obviously it'll take several years at least to achieve that. And then seeing which fans came up with them and maybe rewarding them somehow. I don't know. There's a whole lot that can be done there. And we haven't really had a chance to figure it all out since the Atlantis is so new. But yeah, I mean, really using that data for the next time an artist comes through is what we're looking to do.
Okay. And in terms of, rewarding those fans, but rewarding fans in general, you touched on your Friends with Benefits program. Is that program, or even just rewarding people every now and again, is that important to the work that you do?
Showing fans that they're appreciated, I think, is important. I think that's the case for any business and any customer base. With this program, we make it really easy for fans to get free tickets to shows, get free merch. They get rewarded just for doing something that they would be doing anyway, even if we didn't have this program. So I've been a member of Friends with Benefits for many years before I actually started working here also. So I was well aware of how the program worked before it was under my purview. And I think that was hugely beneficial.
Having been a friend in part of that group, when it came to your time to look after that and to manage that Friends with Benefits group, were there things that you had in mind as a previous subscriber that you thought, it would be really great if they did this, that you were then able to actually implement when you started?
Having merch rewards. I don't know if you know this, but our 930 merch is very sought after. So being able to offer, classic 930 t-shirts as a reward for your points was something I thought needed to happen, and we were able to implement that. And really it's just it's more on the technology side of things that I've wanted to expand that program. Automatic check-ins at shows. Fans get points when they attend a show as well as when they purchase tickets for a show. Currently, it's still a manual process. You have to check in and get your card scanned to get your points, your digital card, but get your card scanned to get your points. And so we're working on a process to make that automatic. If you step foot inside our venue on a show night, the points get added to your account. You don't need to stop and get anything scanned. Your device knows you're there. And so that's something that's exciting that I'm really hoping pans out soon.
That's really cool. And when you think about, I speak to venue owners and particularly probably more independent venue owners, but they'll talk about how important community is to their venues. How important is I guess engaging the community around the venues?
It's hugely important. These people, specifically the people that live within, a few blocks, and I'm looking at the apartment building across the street when I say that, people that live within a few blocks of our venues, more likely than not, they moved there after the venue existed, but they still have to put up with traffic and people running around after shows being loud, and maybe if they're close enough, they hear the music sometimes, especially at our outdoor venue. We're sensitive to that. We understand that that's not always ideal for everybody all the time. So, we make an effort to engage with people in the neighborhood. We'll give away free swag to people on the streets as we're walking around the club or whatever. We have dog, do I have one over here? We have dog poop bag dispensers with our logos on them. So anytime there's somebody walking a dog in the neighborhood, we'll, just give them a little thing as a thank you for putting up with us all these years. And then I think, on a larger scale, it's obviously important to give back. The communities that we're in are thriving partly because of us, but also because of the community itself, and they've rallied around us. So we do a huge holiday raffle every year that benefits, depending on the year, 5 or 6 different DC-based nonprofits. It lasts throughout the month of December. We collect canned goods, clothing, and cash. And we have one winner every year wins tickets to every show at 930 Club the following year. And last year we raised something like $23,000 in cash. I have the numbers here. 670 pounds of food and 3,800 pieces of clothing.
Wow.
So it's, it's not nothing. We like to think it's impactful. And these organizations certainly tell us that it is, so we keep doing it. I think this will be our 22nd year for this raffle.
That's so great. That's awesome. What about some of the businesses that are, again, talking to venue owners, some will say that if they have a pizza shop next door, for example, they might try and team up with that pizza shop, and the night that band A is playing the venue, the pizza place will do a specific pizza for that band. Do you have any activations like that?
We have exactly that happening with the pizza place across the street from 930 Club. But no, we do that with, honestly, almost every business that makes sense for us to work with within, a 10-block radius of our venues, we engage with them. And we want to make sure we're doing something that's mutually beneficial. It's not all about us. So they'll help us promote our shows. We'll help them promote something on their end. And it works both ways. I think that's the only way you can really partner with your local businesses, is to make sure it works both ways. And it's a huge tool for us. Even if it's something as small as putting flyers in their, by their door. But more often than not, it's more along the lines of, doing ticket giveaways with them, or we'll take their flyers and put them on our promotional table from time to time if they're gonna send an email out for us. Lots of options there, and we have a ton of flexibility when it comes to that sort of thing too. In fact, I have one person on my staff that's dedicated to just community partnerships. So
Really? And so when you so you might tap into their email base? Is that what you were alluding to?
I mean, we wouldn't get their email base, but we would do some sort of trade where maybe they send an email out about a show, and we won't send an email necessarily about theirs. We have enough email going on on our own. But we'll do a trade where, it still works for both parties. So maybe they'll send an email for us, and then we'll do a ticket giveaway or a gift card giveaway on our social media. Right. Something like that, dinner and a show type of thing.
Nice. When you think about you put a show on sale or a show goes on sale, like how acutely do you track the ticket sales and adjust the marketing strategies accordingly?
It's my whole job. I am somewhat obsessed with watching our ticket counts. I don't know if it's healthy or not. Depends on who you ask, I guess. No, I look at ticket sales multiple times a day. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. It's the last thing I do before I leave for the day. If we have an email going out or a digital campaign starting up, I am glued to the ticket sales as that thing launches to see if it's impactful right away, if it takes a minute. And then we're constantly tweaking and targeting, especially if it's online, if it's something we can tweak, we're going to.
Right. And typically after an announcement goes out, how quickly do you want to see activations or tickets being bought?
I mean, if a show's going on sale, we better have tickets being bought the moment it's going on sale. But, if we're sending an email out for a show that's happening in 2 weeks, we did one last night. As soon as that email went out, I probably gave it 10 minutes and I started looking at sales. It wasn't enough time. I needed to give it more time. But that's just how I am. But within that day, I would hope that we see a reaction. And if we don't, then it didn't go off as planned and we're going to scrap it and start over or tweak it if we can.
And in terms of making an announcement really have the impact that you want, are there just key basics, key must-dos that every announcement will always have that really give it the best chance of having that impact?
Yeah, I mean, every announcement will always have a huge presence on all of our social media platforms, and a huge presence in our email blast to those nearly 1 million subscribers. Those are the two biggest things that we do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a big base. It's a
huge base. When I started working here, it wasn't quite that big yet, but even then, the number was staggering to me.
Right. Yeah. Well, you must have seen, given obviously you've been there since 2017, you've been through COVID, you've come out the other side of COVID. How are you seeing customer behavior? Like, have you seen it change over that time?
Yeah, I feel like we've seen it change a few times. When we first reopened, COVID was still very much a thing. Of course, it still is now too. I want to make sure I acknowledge that. But back in the fall of 2021, 2 years ago already, we were seeing a lot of late ticket buying, which I think, was due to people not being sure if a show would actually happen or if they would maybe not, be well when the show comes around or what. And I think that was an industry-wide thing that people were seeing. And then it kind of changed. COVID subsided a bit. I think people were really itching to get out, and we saw this crazy urgency to buy tickets throughout most of 2022, I would say, at least the first 3 quarters of 2022. And we just had this incredible amount of shows sell out as they would go on sale more than ever before, which was a really amazing thing to see. We kept hearing that there was all this pent up demand, but we hadn't really been able to witness it yet. That was just kind of the general thought. And then we started to see it, and we knew that was right. There is this pent up demand, and I don't think it's gone away. Things have kind of gone a little bit back to normal. And I guess because COVID has sort of rebounded in the last month or so, we are seeing later ticket buyers again. But generally speaking, I mean, we're selling out more shows than we ever have. We're booking more shows than we ever have, and we're selling out more shows than we ever have. Okay. So it's people are still ready to rock. They're out there. They're out and about. And
With
I'm
that,
going to more shows than I've ever gone to also. So it's,
right.
I feel it.
Nice. With that, you see that creeping back in, that late ticket buying just a little bit. Were there any techniques when that was really the trend, when that was really the big trend? Were there any techniques that you were able to use to try and nullify that, or to mitigate that, whether it's creating urgency or
I really think it was kind of a situation where we had to meet people where they were. And so we would, hold back a little more during the on sale process, and maybe spend a little more towards, closer to the show, when we felt comfortable that it was obviously, that it was going to happen. Obviously, somebody gets COVID the day of their show, they're not going to play that show. But we would give shows a bigger push on the back end because we knew that people were hesitant. And so if we could reassure them that, hey, this show's still on our calendar, it looks like it's going to happen, you should get your tickets. That really, I think it really worked. We would see sales jump when we would start to push it in those last 2 or 3 weeks.
okay, but you don't need to do that so much now?
We still do it, not quite the way that we did right when we came back. We kind of, we put a little more in the front end than we were back then. But it's constantly evolving. It's,
Sure.
we're watching behavior and changing as we see it.
Yeah. Last couple of things. Do you think that people's expectations of venues have changed over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think it's because of social media. People hold everybody, venues, artists, everybody to a higher standard. So, we've definitely had to be more on our toes. Not that we have issues that are unaddressed or anything like that, but people hold businesses to a higher standard than they did before.
And is that, I'm not sure if it would be, but is it reflected in your marketing at all? Do you try and talk about the fact that, this venue, look at our new, I'm not sure what, just any sort of new developments in the venue?
I don't know that it really affects our marketing. I might be a little more careful with words that we use in our email blasts so that we're not offending anyone, which I don't think we ever really were, but I'm more aware of it now, and I think probably most marketers are, but I don't know that it's really affected our marketing.
Very last thing, when you think back about, you must have seen some incredible shows across all the venues throughout your life, but particularly at I.M.P and the venues that you work across there. Are there any nights that will always just be really special to you, whether it was because it was an artist that you really loved, or there was just something about that night that was really magical?
Yeah, there's two that come to mind when you bring that up, and they're both fairly recent. One being when Foo Fighters reopened 930 Club in September of 2021, and it wasn't necessarily because it was Foo Fighters. I'm a fan. I love them. I would go to see them either way, but it was really just being there with people for the first time in a year and a half in that room with the most enthusiastic crowd you could imagine. It really affected me. It was an emotional experience for me. And then the other is very much along the same lines. One of my favorite bands, I'm actually wearing their shirt, My Morning Jacket, played at Merriweather in the summer of 2021. That was our first. It was an outdoor event. It's an outdoor venue, so it was the first venue to reopen. And that was my first show back after a year and a half without live music, and it happened to be this band that I am obsessed with. So that was a pretty a high point in my life.
And do you get to actually interact with these artists?
No, I don't want to interact with my heroes. I'm good. I don't. I don't unless I have to. But I don't necessarily want to. I like that there's some separation still. I've been in this industry for a long time, and I try not to get jaded. So I wanna keep some separation and still be able to be a fan when my favorites are in the room. You know what I mean?
Nice. You mentioned just quickly 9:30 Club. What is it about that place that makes it so special? Because it is world renowned. And then, you have people like Dave Grohl who Foo Fighters will play there, and then Dave will come and help relaunch the Atlantis as well. There is something about this that is clearly very special. What is it about, do you think?
Well, I mean, with Dave in particular, he grew up in the area and grew up going to the 9:30 Club. So it's special for him personally, I think. But the club itself, we've been known for treating artists with a ton of respect and integrity over the years. And I think that resonates throughout the industry. Artists talk, tour managers talk. Everyone knows that when they come to 9:30 Club, they're going to be treated like royalty, whether they're Dave Grohl or the opening act on a local show. So, and we really pride ourselves on that. Similarly, the customer service side of it with patrons that come into our rooms, we like to think that we provide exceptional customer service and treat everyone with respect when they come in, regardless of where they're coming from, what their background is. And I think even more so post-COVID, that's the case.
Nice. Dustin, thank you so much for all your time. It's been really great to chat with you.
Thanks for having me, Rod. It's been a pleasure.